The Bosphorus, meeting place of East and West, of two different cultures and religions. Most Islamic countries are still seen as economically and politically backward. Yet Turkey and the Gulf states above all are enjoying an ongoing economic boom. There has been much talk of Islamic finance, an economic concept with its roots in Sharia law. The concept of Islamic finance was developed in the 1980s. Since then, Volker Nienhuis has been studying the principles of Islamic economics, whose central tenet is a ban on interest and speculation. Could Islamic finance prove to be the much heralded third way between communism and capitalism? The traders in the Istanbul Bazaar offer a basic example of the meeting of commerce and Islam.
Bizim dinimize göre kesinlikle faiz yemek haram. Allah Celle Celaluhu'nun emridir bu. Yani yardıma muhtaç kimselere veyahut da ticaret yapacak kimselere verin diyor. Nasıl verin? Karşılığında bir şey beklemeden verin. En küçük bir faiz dahi girse bütün kazancımız bozulur. Onun için biz kendi öz sermayemizi kullanıyoruz. Nasıl oluyor? Ya uzun vadede büyüyoruz.
Hassan runs his drapery following Islamic practices and rulings that date back centuries.
Böyle. Ama aynı bu olmaz.
Dieses Format.
Bundan.
Es ist sehr glaubwürdig, dass hier ohne Kredit finanziert wird, ohne Kredit gearbeitet wird. Für die Volkswirtschaft insgesamt wäre das sicher ein Problem, weil Industrialisierung, Wachstum, um Arbeitsplätze und Einkommen zu schaffen, notwendig ist. Ich glaube, dieses ist ein interessantes Modell für einen persönlich, für einen überzeugten Muslim, der als Händler arbeitet. Heute in großen anonymen Gesellschaften, in internationalen Märkten kann man, glaube ich, dieses Modell nicht mehr verallgemeinern oder nicht mehr wieder aufleben lassen in der früheren Form. Das heißt, die Wirtschaft zur Zeit des Propheten ist doch eine deutlich andere, als sie heute ist.
And yet, for Muslims, the rulings of the Prophet stand to this day. In London, the main centre of Islamic finance in Europe, commercial law firms are developing modern products that comply with the rules of the Quran. Famida B, a Muslim herself, is an expert on Sharia-compliant products.
A Sharia-compliant product is a product which complies with Islamic principles on doing business, and the one that everybody knows about is the prohibition against paying interest. There are also other restrictions. You can't, for example, have a contract that's purely speculative. So you can't have some of these derivatives products which are intended just for the purpose of creating a profit, and there's nothing underlying them. There are restrictions on certain types of business. So a Sharia-compliant business can't trade in pornography or tobacco or alcohol or pork products.
The United Kingdom was quick to recognize the significance of Islamic finance. The value of Islamic financial products has more than doubled in the last 5 years. Worldwide, the investment volume of Islamic finance stands at over $1 trillion Australian dollars, or 2% of the conventional market. The Islamist terrorist attacks in New York and London not only unsettled the West, but also led to a little-noticed shift in the Islamic world. It saw a sudden return to traditional values, with economics in the vanguard.
After 9/11, there was a huge amount of sympathy for the US, but we then had the Iraq War, and we had things like the Patriot Act, and I think the Islamic world felt that it was being blamed for the actions of a few criminals. And it also made people very conscious of what their religion was, what it meant. I think it made people go back and look at it. It made them become conscious of being Muslims. And I think that, in my opinion, that has very much contributed to the growth of Islamic finance.
France has also been eager to win its share of this new market and to make Paris a center of Islamic finance. Paris economics professor Olivier Pastre advises the French government on these plans.
La finance islamique a commencé dans les années 70, mais elle ne s'est développée qu'à partir du moment où les pays qui promouvaient la finance islamique sont devenus riches et ont eu besoin de développer des financements. C'est donc à partir du milieu des années 80 que la finance islamique s'est vraiment développée. Encore une fois, le développement de la finance islamique suit à peu près le cours du pétrole. À ce moment-là, un certain nombre de philosophes, de théoriciens de l'islam ont dit on ne peut pas désobéir aux principes de l'islam dans la vie financière. Encore une fois, la financiarisation de l'économie, c'est assez récent, et en particulier dans les pays du sud de la Méditerranée et dans les pays du Golfe.
The Emirate of Dubai began to plan years ago for the post-oil era. Despite suffering a property crisis, Dubai has outstripped all its neighbors to become the premier service and business center of the Persian Gulf. Peter Casey is an expert on finance and insurance. He came to Dubai from London in 2002. 85% of the people living in the United Arab Emirates are foreigners from a great variety of backgrounds. There are now more nationalities living in Dubai than in New York. Although Sharia law influences public life in many Arab countries, the economic boom in the Gulf was largely financed in the Western way. However, things are changing. In the States, at the Gulf Cooperation Council, to which Dubai belongs, Islamic finance now has a 22% share of all investments. The Dubai International Finance Center is also the seat of the national regulatory body for Sharia-compliant financial products. Peter Casey is its Director of Policy and Head of Islamic Finance.
I'm not a Muslim, I'm Christian. What that does do though, is make it natural for me to believe that people who have a faith will expect to express it in the whole of their lives and not just in where and how they worship. The Muslim approach to Islamic finance, that it is a natural outworking of their faith, is one that makes sense to me. If you were developing, say, a Christian ethical investment fund, and there are some, and you had to debate about whether you could invest in an in vitro fertilization clinic, some Christians would say yes, some would say no. If we have that discussion 100 years hence, that argument may well have played itself out. But even within Christianity, we are coming to grips with some new possibilities of the modern world, and we haven't got a consensus on it. Exactly the same things happen in the Muslim world.
Bahrain is the seat of the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. Led until recently by Dr. Mohammed Nidal Al-Sha'ar, the organization draws up international standards for Islamic banking and finance. It emphasizes that one of the cornerstones of Islamic finance is the observance of ethical principles.
I think ethics is a human trait, and if you decide to use ethics, that's a choice. So we opted to use ethics in our system, and those ethics stem from our Sharia law, which is the skeleton and the structure of Islam as a religion. And so you see in all of our transactions real protection to the customer, to the investor, and after all to the society. Because the purpose of transacting in a Sharia compliant way is to build planet Earth. That's your final objective.
Dans la réalité, les fonds islamiques tels qu'ils existent aujourd'hui sont assez souvent investis dans l'immobilier, dans le foncier, dans les industries agroalimentaires, dans le tourisme, relativement peu dans l'industrie et relativement peu dans les services. Il y a sûrement, j'en connais pas, mais il y a sûrement des fonds islamiques qui investissent dans l'économie verte, mais il n'y a pas particulièrement de recommandations dans ce domaine-là. Encore une fois, il faut bien distinguer la philosophie qui est assez spécifique et la réalité, où en fait dans la réalité, on a à peu près les mêmes produits financiers, à peu près les mêmes types d'investissements que dans la finance qu'on va appeler conventionnelle.
Critics claim that Islamic finance enforces Sharia prohibitions, but neglects the type of principles that drive Western-style ethical funds. The social principles of the Quran are often ignored, for instance, in the treatment meted out to guest workers in the Gulf states. As in the boom days of Western Europe, hundreds of thousands of guest workers have been brought to the Gulf in order to build modern cities and industries. The vast majority of them are from the Indian subcontinent. Many are Muslims from Pakistan, India, or Bangladesh, yet they are housed in camps well outside of the cities. Anyone who loses his job has 3 months to find another one. After that, he is deported. There are no trade unions and no welfare safety net.
अब के को खुशी अब सबै परिवारलाई घरमा छोडेर आएको छौं यहाँ के को खुशी आफ्नो मजबुरीले यहाँ आएको छौं खुशी त छैन तर पैसाको कमीको कारणले गर्दा यहाँ बस्न परेको छ विदेशमा कसको खुशी हुन्छ र कि विदेशमा बस्ने परिवारलाई छोडेर हैन एग्रीमेन्ट त मेन पारबाट आएको अनि भन्दै थियो 2 वर्षको छ अनि छुट्टी काटेर आयो अब जति दिन बस्न सक्छ अब खोइ कति दिनको एग्रीमेन्ट छ त्यो त कम्पनीको हातमा छ क्या सोचा है तो बहुत कुछ है बहुत बड़ा सपना लिया है लेकिन अब सपना साकार करने के लिए हम कतार आया है अब यहाँ भी देखता हूँ कि अपने मुल्क से भी ज़्यादा दुख उठाना पड़ता है अब क्या ले आया है और क्या करेगा अब क्या बता सकते हैं अपने ज़िंदगी का लाइफ बढ़ाने के लिए हम मेहनत कर रहा है अब जितना होगा नहीं होगा तो क्या करेंगे
The lives of the impoverished migrant workers who poured into the Gulf states illustrate just how difficult it is to bridge the gap between the aspirations and the reality of Islamic economic ethics. These workers came with dreams of a better life. Now they face the reality of 12-hour shifts, poor pay, and 1 day off a week. While the Gulf states import labor and expertise from overseas, Turkey's booming economy is entirely homegrown. Straddling Europe and Asia, the country is in a unique position, and not only geographically. In recent years, Turkey's export revenue has trebled, and its average growth rate of 6% is higher than any in Europe. One factor driving the boom is industrialization in the long-neglected east of the country. 800 kilometers from Istanbul, Anatolian businessmen have built a network founded on Islamic values. They've been dubbed the Islamic Calvinists.
Der Begriff ist so zu verstehen, dass die Calvinisten ja aufgrund ihrer religiösen Überzeugung ihre wirtschaftlichen Aktivitäten im Diesseits auf die sozusagen Entlohnung im Jenseits ausgerichtet haben. Sie waren sparsam, arbeitsam, haben investiert, haben ihr Kapital nicht brach liegen lassen. Und genau das sind Eigenschaften, die wir jetzt auch in Anatolien finden bei Unternehmern, deren Religion der Islam ist. Aber die Charaktereigenschaften, die Ausprägungen sind sehr vergleichbar mit dieser protestantischen Richtung, die ja von Max Weber als Begründung für den Aufstieg des kapitalistischen Amerika genutzt wurden.
This new class of religious entrepreneurs represents a current of Islam that is open to technical innovation and a free market economy. The huge industrial district around the city of Kayseri in central Anatolia produces furniture, household goods and food. In 2010, its 850 businesses had a workforce of 60,000 and often ran 3 shifts a day. The combined turnover was over 6 billion Australian dollars. Milkai, a company specializing in textile recycling, funds its investments out of savings or profits. Nonetheless, Tahir Nusachan, the company's founder and director, cannot always observe the Islamic prohibition on interest.
Bizim müteşebbislerimiz, yatırımcılarımız uzun vadeli, yani bugün pazarlığa tabi dediğimiz yatırım yapacaktır. Mesela 5 milyon euroluk bir yatırım yapacaktır. Bunu gider 2 yıl ödemesiz, 5 yıl ödemeli. Faiz miktarında da örnek diyorum anlaşmak şartıyla yatırım niteliğinde kullanırlar. Yani birçok da ticari hayatta bizim organize sanayimizde para alıp da para satan tüccar yoktur. Yani mutlaka mal alıp satıyordur. Hassas bir nokta tabii. Biz şimdi faize helal dememiz mümkün değil. Ama yatırım olduğu için bir çıkış kapısı olduğunu düşünüyoruz. Caiz diyemeyiz. Yok, nasıl caiz değiliz? Af kapısı vardır. Ya Rabbi sen bizi affet deriz biz.
Also für den mittelständischen Geschäftsmann gibt es, glaube ich, in der Praxis gar keine gewaltigen Unterschiede zwischen konventionellem und islamischem Finanzwesen, weil das Verbot, Zinsen zu nehmen, bedeutet, dass man keine verzinslichen Gelddarlehen ausleihen kann oder aufnehmen sollte. Allerdings kann man diese verzinslichen Gelddarlehen etwa für den Geschäftsmann dadurch ersetzen, dass die Bank statt Liquidität Güter bereitstellt, also Handelswaren, die benötigt werden, Maschinen, die benötigt werden, vermietet. Und insofern ändert sich nur die Vertragsgrundlage, auf der die Finanzierung beruht. Die Finanzierung vom Ökonomischen her, die Möglichkeit, Kapital von anderen, der Sparer zum Beispiel, zurückzugreifen, ändert sich dadurch nicht. Das heißt, es ist ein juristischer Unterschied zunächst mal, noch nicht ein betriebswirtschaftlicher Unterschied.
Zakaria Joshkun comes from Eseli, a village in central Anatolia. Like many of his peers, he had no vocational training. So, after his military service, he left his village in search of work. Then he heard from friends that in Kayseri, they were looking for workers.
Bizim buralarda yaygın olan gurbetçilik dediğimiz şey inşaat üzerine. Diğer büyük illere, daha da büyük illere, güneydeki veya batıdaki illere bu inşaat işine gitmeye başladık o zaman da. Boyacılık, sıva, kalıp, inşaat üzerine çalışmaya başladık. Diğer illere giderdik o zaman.
Yurt dışına çıkma?
O biraz zordu. Yurt dışına çıkmayı düşünmedim şimdi. Çıkamazdı tabii ki. Şimdi meslektaşlarımız şimdi her yerden var, hemen Kayseri'nin doğu tarafındaki olan illerimizden. Her taraftan var. Sivas'tan var, Yozgat'tan var, Adıyaman'dan var, Erzurum'dan var, Adana'dan var, güneyden. Her Nevşehir'den var. Her yerden Kayseri'ye göç alarak geliyor. Arkadaşlarla beraber çalışıyoruz. Şimdi Kayseri'de işsizlik oranı yok. İşsizlik yok diyecek kadar az. Ben ilk geldiğim yer burası.
15 years ago, Zakaria started out at Milkai Textiles as an untrained worker. Today, he is in charge of quality control. The recycling company produces goods ranging from towels to rugs and mattresses, and even materials used in resurfacing roads. The success of Milkai Textiles shows that Islam and modernity can coexist. It's taken for granted in Kayseri that every company will provide staff prayer rooms just as it provides staff training.
Allahu Ekber. Allahu Ekber.
The owners of the local factories feel a strong sense of responsibility to the community. Their dedication has deep roots in the traditions of Islamic welfare. Schools and cultural institutions, scholarships, and even roads and hospitals are funded by private donations. After an early shift starting at 7 a.m., Zakaria returns home in the late afternoon to Elbashi, a classic working-class district in Kayseri. Here he shares a 60-square-meter apartment with his wife, his 2 children, and his mother-in-law. He earns $650 a month, just enough to get by on.
Korkma Allah'tan, korkandan derler ya. Onun için Allah'tan korkan insanlar biraz korkmuyoruz. O da bize rahat geliyor. Birbirimizle iletişimimiz kolay oluyor. Artı bizim dinimizde bir şey vardır. Peygamber Efendimizin hadisi vardır. Diyor işte işçinin alnını teri kurumadan hakkını veriniz. Şimdi gerçeğini konuşmak gerekirse dine saygılı olmayan birisiyle çalışmadım ben. Artık işte bir babacan seven bir insan Tahir Bey. Biz de kendisiyle beraber bizi hiç işçiler olarak değil ortaklar olarak görür devamlı.
Bizim için para bir amaç teşkil etmiyor. Bizim için para bir araç. Yani bu araç ne demektir? İnsanların sosyal yaşantısını güçlendiren, insanlara biraz daha mutluluk ve müreffeh bir hayat sağlayan bir araç. Amaç yapan insanların mutlu olamayacağını düşünüyoruz. Biz de onun için amaç değil de para, araç. İnsanların hayatın gelişmesinde bir araçtır. Onu da hak ettiği şekilde israf etmeden kullanmayı amaçlamaktayız biz. Yani paylaşılmayan bir dünyada mutlu olmak mümkün değil.
Tahir Nuzercan embodies the type of paternal businessman that has become very rare in Western economies, driven as they are by shareholder value. Of course, this is not to say that there are no social differences between the factory owner and his workers.
Teşekkür ediyorum, sağ olun. Olmaz yok çocuklarımın iş konusunda bize sorular olmaz. Mümkün mertebe eve iş gelmez.
Milkai Textiles works 3 shifts around the clock. Its products are exported to 42 countries, and the yearly turnover is around $77 million.
Kolay gelsin. Hayırlı işler. Merhaba, hayırlı işler. Ne var ne yok?
Is it really possible to finance a company of this size in a way that complies with Sharia law?
Kredi olmadan bu kuruluşu şu anda kuramazdık. Normal şimdi bankalarla çalışıyoruz tabii. Katılım bankalarını tercih etmiyoruz. Ben arzu ederdim ki onlarla çalışmaya ama onların şartları da normal bankalardan daha zor. Ben şimdi bir dönem şunu yaşadım burada. Faizli bankaya gittim, kredi borcumu erken ödedim. Faizli banka kredi borcumu düştü. Faizi düştü. Faizden iskonto yaptı parayı erken ödediğim için. Katılım bankasına gittim. Dedim ki al şu borcumu ödüyorum sana. Hayır dedi, tam ödeyeceksin. Ben sana oradan kar payından düşme yapmam dedi. Düşmedi kar payından. Parayı veremedik.
Though it is still a secular state, Turkey has become a model for enlightened Muslims in the Arab world. It has reconciled religion, public life and business in a most undogmatic way.
Bemerkenswert ist, dass diese sogenannten anatolischen Tiger oder islamischen Calvinisten in der Regel sehr religiöse Personen sind und aus ihrer religiösen Überzeugung heraus motiviert unternehmerisch tätig geworden sind. Denn der Islam ist eine Religion, die die Eigenverantwortlichkeit, die eigene Leistung betont, Privateigentum betont, Märkte betont. Und dieses zusammengenommen führt eigentlich zu einer sehr effizienten Unternehmerwirtschaft und nicht zu dem, was wir häufig vom Islam glauben, beobachten zu können, Fatalismus und Allah wird es schon richten und sozusagen Passivität. Nein, im Gegenteil, hier ist es genau in die andere Richtung gegangen.
In the Gulf, business driven by huge oil revenues is still seeking a path of its own as it tries to find a balance between centuries-old religious traditions and the profit model of Western economic systems. In the Gulf states, guest workers labor for an average of barely $250 per month. This is at a time when, according to the Emirates Industrial Bank, regional oil revenues have risen to $424 billion. When the property bubble burst in 2008, it marked a new phase in the hitherto unstoppable growth of the Gulf states. For the first time, all-out capitalism was questioned. The crisis led to a rethink. In a region once known for its rampant consumerism, investments are now being made with an eye to the post-oil era. Sharia-compliant finance is playing an ever greater role. Islamic scholars are called on to decide whether particular projects meet religious requirements.
À partir du moment où la finance est développée, un certain nombre de scholars, comme on dit, de sages, ont suggéré d'appliquer les principes de l'islam, c'est-à-dire l'interdiction du taux d'intérêt à la finance, et la finance islamique a commencé à se développer. Une des difficultés dans le développement de la finance islamique tient à ce que chaque structure d'investissement est accompagnée de ce qu'on appelle un sharia board, un conseil d'administration éthique qui définit les types d'investissements qu'on peut accepter et ceux qu'on ne peut pas accepter. Et les sharia boards n'ont pas toutes la même position. Donc en fait, il y a une relative hétérogénéité de la finance islamique qui est un frein à son développement.
And then once you've put together a particular structure, you generally need a statement that what you've provided is a Sharia-compliant product. And that statement, people call it a pronouncement or a fatwa, would come from an Islamic scholar who was familiar not just with Islamic principles, but also with financial markets and structures. So the scholar would review the documents that we had created and would then issue, I suppose, the equivalent of a legal opinion to say that in his opinion this structure was Sharia compliant.
The annual conference of the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions, meeting in Manama, the capital of Bahrain. Politicians, bankers, and above all, religious scholars have gathered to clarify basic issues of Islamic financial economics. At the conference is Sheikh Nizam Yaqubi, often said to be the most influential Sharia scholar of all.
Along with the colonial era came certain legal systems and also the banking system. However, the majority of the Muslims did not accept the interest model. Even if they deposited their funds for safekeeping or so in certain areas. But in many, many countries, they are underbanked. And the reason for that is that they don't believe in the interest-bearing system. So after the colonial powers were, leaving the country, many intellectuals started to ask for return back to the original system.
The system has been there, but it has not been documented. It has not been put on papers. It was not turned into institutional type of business. It is only in the early 70s that the business took on an institutional form. Few banks were formed, and they labeled themselves as Islamic banks, and they transacted in an Islamic way that comply with Sharia principles and rules.
The stronger the growth of Islamic finance, the greater the need for informed advice. But the number of Sharia scholars is limited. In the whole world, there are just 300 of them to share the 1,000 or so counseling contracts, the so-called Sharia mandates. Their influence on Islamic business finance is therefore considerable. Many legal scholars sit on Sharia boards, in banks, insurance companies, funds, and indexed funds. But with so many scholars in these positions, can they really be called independent advisors? Or are they themselves stakeholders in the financial institutions?
Also wenn ich zwischen diesen Bildern wählen dürfte, dann würde ich sagen, es sind eher selbstständige Berater, die von der Bank bezahlt werden. Zum einen gibt es keine Kirche in dem Sinne, und zum anderen sind es relativ wenige Experten, die auch zum Teil durch nicht standardisierte Ausbildungsgänge Expertise erworben haben, Anerkennung gefunden haben unter ihren Kollegen und deswegen eine relativ kleine Gruppe von sehr prominenten Scharia-Gelehrten im Augenblick tonangebend sind, so etwa 30 bis 35 sind. Nun kommt es sehr darauf an, wie der einzelne Rechtsgelehrte die Buchstaben des Vertrages und die Buchstaben der Scharia miteinander in Übereinklang bringt, wobei ich bei den Buchstaben der Scharia schon gezögert habe, weil es gibt kein geschriebenes Gesetzbuch, sondern es gibt Rechtsschulen, unterschiedliche Rechtsschulen, die unterschiedliche Prinzipien und unterschiedliche Methoden der Rechtsfindung jeweils verfolgen.
In 2007, a scandal erupted at the Accounting and Auditing Conference. One of the most prominent, but also most controversial legal scholars, Pakistani Sheikh Taqi Usmani, alleged that 85% of the so-called shukuks, or Islamic loan products, were not Sharia compliant. The shukuks were only a relatively small proportion of the Islamic bank's portfolio, but his comments sparked intense debate. To what extent may the Islamic financial world take its lead from the Western one? Since the current financial crisis began, both conservative and liberal representatives of Islamic financial theory have emphasized that such a thing would be unthinkable in their system.
When money is traded, no extra asset has been created. I lent money to you and claimed some interest on it, and that's it. So no new asset has been created. But as Islam, through its injections, has provided a system of financing where each and every single transaction of financing is backed by asset. It cannot be merely trading in money that has been multiplied by the so-called derivatives. You know that the derivatives, the worth of derivatives has grown to the extent of 12 times more than the GDP of the whole world, while there is nothing behind them, no asset at all, no real economy, just numbers fed in the computers.
In the Gulf states, the growth of the Islamic financial industry is more apparent than anywhere else. The largest sovereign wealth funds in the world have at their disposal huge amounts of capital that must be invested. But not even the Islamic financial world can escape the pressures of growing competition in the international capital and financial markets. So it too constantly thinks up new financial products to generate growth and offer attractive profit potential. And like Western banks, most Islamic banks are also governed by shareholder interests. Is the Islamic financial world nonetheless more stable than the Western banking system?
Le cœur philosophique, c'est le partage du risque. Quand une banque française, allemande ou américaine prête à un client, que ce soit une entreprise ou une personne physique, elle perçoit un taux d'intérêt et donc elle sait à l'avance l'argent qu'elle va recevoir. Il n'y a pas de partage de risque. Alors, la crise, c'est le refus d'assumer le risque. Je prends l'exemple des crédits subprime, les crédits hypothécaires aux États-Unis faits à des ménages qui avaient peu de ressources. C'est ça l'origine de la crise actuelle, origine qui remonte à 2007. Ces crédits étaient titrisés, terme technique qui est très simple, qui consiste à transférer le risque. Donc, par rapport à ça, le principe philosophique de la finance islamique qui est de dire on ne transfère pas le risque, on ne se défausse pas, on ne se garantit pas, mais on partage, me paraît adapté à la Periode aktuelle.
Wenn Sie sich die westliche Bankenszene angucken, dann haben wir große Probleme bei den international aktiven Investmentbanken, aber die regional orientierten Banken, die Banken mit einer starken Einlagenbasis, Sparkassen, Genossenschaftsbanken und Ähnliches, sind relativ gut durch die Krise gekommen. Und so ähnlich von den ökonomischen Charakteristika sind auch islamische Banken. Diese Prototypen für mehr spekulative Geschäfte oder für Transaktionen, die spekulativen Charakter haben können, sind noch keineswegs in weiter Anwendung, sondern das sind, wie gesagt, erste Versuche. Es gibt aus meiner Sicht durchaus Triebkräfte in diese Richtung, weil das der Bereich ist, in dem besonders hohe Gewinne zu realisieren sind, in der Finanzwirtschaft selber.
The Dubai Stock Exchange. The Islamic financial system has joined the world of high finance. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones has an Islamic market index, and the Western financial world has been positive about the funding of major projects with a combination of conventional and Sharia-compliant investments. One of the best known is the 2006 Dubai Ports deal, in which United Arab Emirates Company took over management of a number of US seaports. The $10 billion investment was financed by a mixture of conventional loans and the Islamic bonds known as shukuks.
And so we had interesting issues of intercreditor between the conventional investors, lenders, and the Islamic investors in the sukuk. So it was complex, it was large, it was very public, and I do think that transaction brought Islamic capital markets to the forefront of the conventional markets. I think they realized the depth of potential liquidity that there was in the Islamic capital markets. I think up until then it had been seen as sort of a specialist niche area.
I think the real issue is there a difference? And what is Islamic finance trying to do? I used the expression smoke and mirrors, and it is an allegation that's very commonly made about Islamic finance. I've heard Muslims with a good knowledge of finance suggest essentially that what we see sometimes is essentially conventional transactions dressed up in a Sharia-compliant garb. That is one of the key debates that's going on in Islamic finance at the moment.
The Islamic financial system is now determined mainly by lawyers and religious scholars. But what about the role of Islamic trading traditions and values in the everyday lives of Gulf businessmen? Inam Abidi Amrovi came to Dubai in 2006. As an Indian Muslim, he hoped to find greater freedom and professional opportunity.
If I talk about business in general, business is all about making money, So if it could be a Muslim making money, it could be a non-Muslim making money. I have met people from both the religion, Hindu, maybe Christian or Muslims. They want to do something for the society also, and they're very God-fearing people. I've also met people from all sorts of religion and background who have left no stone unturned, in making money by hook or crook. And it goes the same everywhere, whether in UAE or in India or anywhere in the world. Those are the people who will make money by anyhow. Yeah, I have heard of Islamic finance, and I am myself, my own accounts with HSBC, they are all, Islamic accounts.
Inam's company deals in electronics and telecommunications products. Like all foreigners, he must have a business partner who is a Dubai national and who also holds at least a 51% share in the company. To Inam, a practicing Muslim, the values of Islam are a bond between him and his partner. All their agreements are based purely on trust. There is no written contract.
Any calls for me?
But are the values that link Inam and his Arab silent partner still typical of everyday business life in the Emirates?
Okay, so you send, I've given you the card. Okay, you have the email ID anyway.
His business partner is critical of the excesses of the new Gulf economy.
المواطنون هنا غالبا الجيل الجديد يعتمد على الحكومة. البعض منهم يعمل بالتجارة. الذين يعملون بالتجارة هؤلاء نسبة محدودة، لكن غالبية المواطنين موظفون إما في الدفاع، إما في الشرطة، إما في الدوائر الحكومية. هؤلاء هم عماد هذا البلد. لكن هنا مشكلة أيضا، عندما يعرف المواطن أن الدولة تسانده وأن الراتب ممتاز، يسعى لمصروف ربما فوق طاقته. لذلك هنا الدراسات تقول أن نسبة كبيرة جدا من المواطنين مديونين للبنوك، لأن السيارة بالأقساط، أثاث المنزل بالأقساط، وتقريبا أكثر الأنشطة التجارية أيضا عن طريق البنوك. نسبة قليلة تراعي أحكام الإسلام في العمل أو في التجارة بالذات، والنسبة العظمى تمشي مع الحياة.
Not quite 2 hours' drive away is Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates. It's still overshadowed by the glittering Dubai, but Abu Dhabi has huge oil reserves that guarantee it a steady income stream for decades to come. And Abu Dhabi harbors ambitions. In the course of the 21st century, it hopes to become a world city to rival Paris and London. Like all the Gulf states, it has a young, well-educated and cosmopolitan generation waiting to shape the transition to the post-oil era. Rami Al-Tayyar works as a manager for an American hotel chain.
My father is a bit of the old school style, so you walk into his office, there's a lot of paperwork, but nowadays you always see me on my BlackBerry sending and receiving emails. Even though my father has a BlackBerry, but he refuses to have the whole network thing on it because he's like, it's too complicated. For me, it's easier to use. The paperwork is complicated, so it's just a matter of technology. I grew up with PlayStations and Sega Genesis, and he grew up with just running around and playing soccer. And
Rami's father came to Dubai from Egypt before his son was born. He was a professional footballer. His decision to stay on once his sporting career was over was not difficult. The emerging oil boom gave him the opportunity of a lifetime. He too works with the required local partner without a contract on the basis of mutual trust.
People here, when he make business with you, not need sign with him contract. What he say to you, you are believe him. I see very nice people talk with me nice and want to make something new. When I am start work with my boss, we are start work together like two brothers in one family, one companies. For sure, something change, but still, these people I told you is living in desert. Desert people like not people living in the town like any country in the world. Different. It's still pure. Still have nice heart. Never ever feel work for somebody. And when we are go meet with the people, my boss, he say, we are work together. He not say work for me. This is very important about psychology for anybody, I tell you example, son for my boss, he said to me, uncle, and also my son, he said to my boss, uncle, we say by Arabic, ammi, this meaning my uncle, you know.
That's my uncle, and that's my father over here. My father has been working with him for the past 40 years, and this man almost raised me, my uncle Ghanem. Love him to bits. This is me when I was young. You can see the little Michael Jackson look over here. This is my mother.
Yeah, how are you?
She takes care of me, still. 27 years old, I don't care.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this is the view I told you guys about.
Family, social and political relations remain shaped by patriarchal and autocratic structures. Wealth and power remain in the hands of a few ruling families. While citizens of the Emirates prosper, business development and the country's infrastructure are managed almost entirely by foreigners. Their rights are restricted, their future uncertain. Rami Al-Tayyar was born in Abu Dhabi, but he will never be entitled to the passport of the country he calls home.
This is my country. This is Abu Dhabi. This is the perfect spot, you know, just to come and think for a second. Look back. Every person here, every person that was born here, you know, when he sees this, it feels like I actually achieved something. I actually helped build this place somehow.
It's been told that Muslims are poor. It's true. And how do we relieve them from poverty? You cannot just distribute money. You have to install a system that will enable them to take an opportunity, economic opportunities, investment opportunities, and translate that into life functions such as education, work, you know, better life conditions for all.
Islamic economic theory has not created a third way between capitalism and communism. But it does have the potential to make a deep and lasting change to the Muslim world, economically, but above all, socially and politically.
La possibilité de rayonnement de la finance islamique est le même que la possibilité de rayonnement de la religion de l'islam. Et donc, je pense que après la crise, la finance islamique continuera à se développer. Je pense que la finance islamique est à la fois différente dans sa philosophie et souvent très proche dans son application. Et j'ai tendance à dire de manière triviale, c'est de la finance anglo-saxonne peinte en verte.
Es gibt eine Aufgabe für islamische Banken, die liegt nicht darin, das Gleiche nochmal zu erfinden, was wir schon längst haben, nur noch komplizierter. Also die gleichen spekulativen Instrumente auf einer anderen Rechtsgrundlage bringt uns wirklich nicht weiter. Aber vernachlässigte Sektoren, vernachlässigte Unternehmerschichten zu fördern, das wäre, glaube ich, lohnend und auch machbar.
The success of the religious entrepreneurs in Anatolia shows that an economy grounded in Islam can play a part in positive social change. Yet, as long as this remains no more than a vision in the Gulf states, Zakaria Coşkun's confession of faith will sound more like a challenge to the ruling classes in the Gulf.
İslam dini bir eşitlik dinidir. İnsanların eşit olduğunu, siyahın beyaza, beyazın siyaha hiçbir üstünlüğün olmadığını, sosyal adaletin tam olduğunu, herkesin Allah katında takvada, yani yapmış olduğu ibadetlerde üstünlük olacağını söylüyor. Yani şeydeki gibi bir ırkçılık veya bir insanlara kendisinin aileden dolayı, soydan soptan dolayı üstünlüğünü hiçbir zaman kabul etmiyor İslam dini. İslam dininde bir köleyle efendi aynı anda namazını kılabiliyor. Kur'an-ı Kerim'de de var bu. Peygamber Efendimizin hadislerinde de var. Aynı yerde durabiliyor, aynı yemekten yiyebiliyor, aynı arabaya binebiliyor. Hiçbir zaman sınıf ayrımı veya da başka üstünlük yoktur. Üstünlük sadece yapmış olduğun ibadettedir dinimizde olarak.
The concept of embedding social equality in an economic system that serves society is not alien to Christian culture either. It's just that this ideal has never prevailed. The same fate appears to be threatening Islamic business ethics. Sophisticated, Sharia-compliant financial products are not signs of a new system striving for development, sustainability, and social justice, but of a system aiming to maximize profit under the auspices of religion. Their marketplace is the International Stock Exchange, and ethics and morality never rated very highly there.